Hi, everybody. I'm Sue Landay, president of Trainers Warehouse. Welcome to Show and Share. I'm joined today by Mike Lynch and Zoe Lane. So Mike and Zoe are a father-daughter team, which is close to my heart because I think lots of you know that my dad started our company as well. Mike started Northgate about 45 years ago. And Zoe's been with him for the past 10 years. She does all of the business development, manages the team, does the marketing. And at this point in their company's life, they have 80 plus games. They sell them worldwide. And I'm delighted to have them with us today to show a couple of the tools that they have. So I'm going to just hand it over to you guys. And Mike and Zoe have also assured us that if you all have questions, please don't hesitate to ask, to put them in the chat. As you all know, these are really informal and really happy to learn about your tools. So take it away.
Okay, good. Well, we're going to look at three of our games. Look at the first one in some detail, and the second one and the third one. So I'm just going to try and share the screen, which could be challenging. Okay. So we believe in learning by doing, which I know you all like. We like people to be engaged and have fun. And our games come in a box or digitally, and they cover the key management skills like time management, teamwork, leadership, planning, and they're all very active and dynamic. And we like people to have fun, but also learn a lot from them. So when we're running a game, we put our group into teams, usually 3 or 4 teams. We issue them what we call a briefing sheet, which tells them who they are in the game and what they represent. Then we observe the action as facilitators. And finally, we do the debrief when we try and link some of the lessons to the workplace. And typically, the games are about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, but we've got some that are shorter, and we've got a couple that last the whole day. Typically, that would be a business simulation where they're running a business because they're a bit more complicated. So the first one we're going to look at is a time trial game, which is all about time management. And it's for face-to-face or virtual and for 1 or 4 teams. So on the brief here, the team is told that they represent Chris Milton, who's the general manager of a safari park. It's 9 a.m. on a Monday morning, and they're going to spend the next hour in planning their time for the week. And to begin with, they get a organization chart so they can see there at the top there, Chris Milton, second down, and they can see who all the staff are in case they want to delegate any of the tasks. And essentially, this is an inbox exercise where the team's given 14 emails that they have to work through and decide how to cope with them. But just before they start, in the first 10 minutes, they look at the current projects they've got on. They've got 6 current projects, and you can just see 4 of them here. And they have to decide whether these are important or urgent or both. And they use the Eisenhower matrix, which I think you probably know about. So up in the right-hand corner here, you've got the Eisenhower matrix, and in this box, they put the number of each project. So if it's important and urgent, it goes top left. If it's important but not urgent, it goes top right, and so forth. So they decide on the category they're going to put these major projects in. And then if they want to do any of those major projects, they put them in the diary. And here's their diary, and they can just block out the time they want. So the first one, if they decided to do project 1, it takes 3 hours. So you decide where in the week you wanted to do it and block out three hours. Then you're given 14 emails, which are in your inbox. And you have to decide for each one how you're going to deal with it. And if you are going to deal with it, you put it in the diary. And you also fill out this action record. So for the first email, which is A, you probably decide with this one that you need to have a meeting. And so you put action is M for meeting and any notes about that. And then the next email you look at, you might want to delegate. So you'd use D and you'd put a D in the action column. So you were delegating that. And then in the notes area, you say who you were going to delegate to. So you look at the organization chart and decide who to delegate to. You can also just say no. So an email might come in and you say, we're not interested in that, not important to me. So I'm just going to say no. And you just write SNO in the action column. So as they work through the 14 emails, they're filling in this action record of what they're going to do with each one. And they're also filling in the diary if they're going to actually work on the on whatever it is themselves. At the same time, while they're working on these 14 emails, they've got other emails which are coming in all the time. This sort of replicates what happens in the real world. So every 10 minutes, you're getting an email dropped on your desk. So as well as you're doing the original 14 ones, you've got new ones to cope with. And it's up to the team whether they drop everything and deal with them or whether they leave them until the end. And then when the team has finished going through all their emails, which they're doing in this picture here, we go through the debrief and we're looking at scheduling, we're looking at prioritization, looking at delegation, general time management, when to say no, and the difference between urgent and important. So we feel it's a really good exploration and test of how well people can manage their time. And then we can try and transfer a bit of that learning and get them to think about how they might improve their time management back in the workplace. And there's a handout of 20 key tips which they can use back at work. So that's basically one game.
And Mike, it looks like this can either be played online or in the classroom. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, that's right. So you can either use the resources face to face, or you can use it in a virtual classroom by sending documents digitally to your delegates. And I think Nora's got a question I can see in the chat. So I'll just read that out. Could you please define diary here? I know that word is recording what happened. Are you using it as a work plan?
It's just their diary they have of the next week. And so they can write in which day they're going to do a particular task on.
Yeah, so it's their calendar, isn't it? It's like their calendar.
Calendar, yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so they've basically got two documents. They've got the calendar and they've got the action plan. And they make a note on the action plan of how they're going to deal with the email. And then if they're going to actually work on it themselves, they schedule it into the calendar.
Right. I see how it works. The language of it was what made me curious.
Sorry, we're British. We don't speak very well. I'm sorry about that.
No, I think it may be a British thing. To you, a diary is the plan. And for me, the diary is, I wrote what happened today or in my life. That's a diary.
Oh, right.
We write in our diary and we lock up our diary so no one can read it. Somebody else chime in here on this. Am I nuts or what? I just kept saying diary. Are we writing it afterwards? Are we recording what we did? But no, now I understand.
Yeah, we should never have given you independence. It's got out of hand, I think.
Yeah. I love this skill. This is beautiful.
Yeah. Any other questions? I know that Mike and Zoe have two more games they want to show us, but if we want just kind of glancing through the group, should we let's go on, and again we'll Jillian asks, is there a right answer?
Oh, yes, of course, there's a right answer. So you also get a trainer's notes. And in the trainer's notes, there's the right answer for the initial projects, whether they were important or urgent, and which ones they should have done in their calendar that week. And there's also a right answer for how to deal with each of the emails, the 14 that they're looking at and the 6 that come in during the course of the game. And for every one they get right, they get 4 points. And so that there is a score at the end, and each team gets a score out of 100. And this is very useful because if a team's scoring 32, they don't really understand much about managing time. Whereas if they're up in the 70s and 80s, they're really doing very well. So it's really good to have the score and the right answers.
I'll also say that in my experiences, we review each product that we sell before we make a decision to sell it. And we've always been really impressed with Northgate's facilitation notes and the thoroughness that will help facilitators run the game effectively, debrief it effectively. So that first slide where he was saying, we have all of this information for all of those different steps, the setup, the facilitation, the debrief. You've got all the tools right there to really make each of their experiences successful.
Yes, thanks. I was going to add I've just taken a quick look. So the trainer's notes for this particular activity is 12 pages. So it's very detailed in terms of the debrief notes. And Michael says, so the learning is obviously the experience is key, but the learning often comes out during the debrief when you're really pulling out what happened. The delegates are getting those wow moments where they're thinking, well, I thought I was quite good at it. Maybe I'll have to rethink whether I'm as good as I thought I was. And so the debrief is a key part of the activity where the learning happens, really. And you can link it back to their roles.
Great. All right, let's move on to the next one.
Okay, so we get the concept in that first one of the teams get a briefing sheet, which tells them what they've got to do. So this next one's the same. This is our bestseller at the moment. So it's called Escape Room. This is the cover of the team brief, and it's all about collaborative teamwork. So we put people into teams, and what we find is whenever you put people into teams, they automatically want to compete. And in this game, they have to realize, and the penny drops quite soon, that they need to collaborate. And there is a corner of the room where a representative from each team can go and meet leaders from the other teams, and that's how they collaborate. So this is the team brief, and it tells them they're locked in a room. Now, we don't really want to lock people in a room because of health and safety. So we have a poster in the pack, which has some locks and combination locks on and some chains. So it looks as if they're locked in the room and they've got to get out. They've got 60 minutes to get out. So there's 2 things they have to do. Each team has to find out one number out of a 4-digit combination. So if each of the 4 teams can find one number and put them all together, that gives them the 4 digits to get out. They also have to find out who locked them in, and they also have to build a little tower out of straws, which is just a little creative thing in there, which is in the game, it's to boost the signals if they need to call for help.
That's fun.
So the way they find out their 1 digit is they've got to solve 8 problems or 9 problems. And I'm going to give you one of these problems to see how intelligent you are, because so far I'm not sure. So if we just have a quick look. This is one of the problems. Could you just have a look at that? And basically it's saying how many 7s are there between 1 and 100. So we've got 7, 17, 27. Can anyone tell me how many 7s there are?
It's probably like 20-ish, I'm guessing.
You're
I know, I
guessing.
haven't done it. Okay, anybody?
We've got a few answers in the chat coming in.
We also have like 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76,
So we
77.
have 10, 11, and Sue's on 20.
Wow, 10, 11, and 20. Well, that's a good range. When we run this game, that's typically people say 11. And actually, in the game, when you get an answer to a problem, you run up to the trainer, tell them the answer, and if you're right, you get given a letter. And every time you get a right answer, you get a letter. And if you put those letters together, it tells you who locked you in. So it's very important that you get a right answer, because if you get a wrong answer, you lose the letter and no one can get it. And you also get a 5-minute penalty. So the 60 minutes immediately goes to 55 minutes. And if another team gets a wrong answer, it goes to 50 minutes. So this teaches teams very early on why they need to collaborate. Because if in my team, I think the answer is 11, and I run up and say the answer is 11, I'm going to get a 5-point penalty and lose one of my letters. Whereas if I go and collaborate with the other teams, there'll be some bright spark who says 20, like Susan, and we can and we can think, great, we'll say 20 instead of 11, and we won't get the penalty, but we'll get the letter. So all these problems that they have to solve look quite easy in one sense. There's a slight trick, and if you just think about it a little bit more, you'll get it. Down the bottom here, I don't know if you can see those in those chains, there's some numbers. Those are the answers to all the problems, but no one ever looks at those. They just think they're part of the design of the brief. But we actually give them all the answers if they bother to look. We've used this game hundreds of times. No one's ever realized that the answers are all down the bottom. So that's good. And the answer to this one is 20. So I've just marked it with a yellow circle. So we find that's a really good game for teaching teams to work together and not have a silo mentality.
I see a question here from Lorraine. Is there a way for several teams to compete simultaneously using this game?
Yes, so the game, this one is actually it has to be run with 4 teams because it is about collaboration. And we actually you can multiply those up. So we have up to 10 teams at a time with extra licenses. So if you've got, for example, we've got somebody's about to run it with 150 actually at the same time, 150 delegates, they will be running 3 games concurrently. So they'll have a group of 3 groups of 50. So yes, the teams do compete simultaneously, or they collaborate. They should be collaborating. So the aim is that they all have to work together.
And Anna is asking about conducting this with virtual teams.
Mm-hmm. So we have a virtual version that comes with the face-to-face version. So you get both versions. And essentially they're the same, except for instead of building a physical tower, which you do in the face-to-face classroom version, there is a puzzle that you can do in a virtual environment that replaces that. So there is a virtual version.
Terrific.
Mhm.
Well, we have one
And
more
I've
to
used
go.
I've used this game multiple times. I have the 10-team version. And I will tell you that it's for Northgate, they said it's their #1 seller. It's my number 2. My number 1 is demonstrating leadership. But this game I use a lot in school systems for professional development days for teachers. And as Mike talked about early on, they really they displayed the silo effect, and it gets competitive. They don't want to share results. So the first time you have the meeting table, no one shows up because they don't want to share. Until the second time it comes up, they start realizing, because they'll ask me questions and I say, well, you need to get that from everybody else. And they'll start realizing they have to share and work together. And it's the exact same thing that happens in organizations. We get in our corner and we're siloed. I don't want to tell IT what I'm doing. I don't want to tell marketing what I'm doing because, you know, I'm competing for those budget dollars, right? Then they realize that they have to work together. It's always a fun game to simulate.
Oh, thank you,
good.
Cedric.
Just a couple more questions, and then I know Mike has one more game to show us. Anna's asking, are they in breakout rooms? And Evelyn asks, are there different scenarios once you've played on versions? I'm going to put actually a link to Evelyn's question. I'll put the Mars Escape down there. If you can, Zoe, reply to the question about the breakout rooms.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, if you're running this one in a virtual setting, yes, you'd want to put all 4 teams into their own breakout room, and then you can either tell them there's going to be an opportunity to meet every 10 minutes, or you can wait for them to demand the meeting and then pop them into a 5th breakout room for that. So you can, if you use Zoom, it's quite good for adding people to extra breakout rooms. So yeah, it depends on sort of which system you're using to manage your virtual training session. It was originally designed for the classroom, but we adapted it for virtual.
All right, and I've also added some links to Escape from Mars and Escape Room 2. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the escape room that Mike just described is one set of challenges. So in terms of different versions, you need to purchase a different game, basically.
That's right. Yes, the Escape Room 2 is actually competitive. So there's no collaboration in that one. This one is collaboration. Escape Room 2 is competitive. So the teams are trying to outdo each other. And it's much more tactile. There's lots of tactile puzzles and burglar alarms and all sorts of things in it. So the third game is about emotional intelligence. And again, it's face-to-face or virtual. And basically, originally it was a set of cards that teams looked at, which you can print these off as cards, or you can show the slides in the classroom. And it's a set of cards that the teams will look at. So this is the pack contents. There's a set of cards, the response cards, yes, no cards, and task cards. And then there's various forms that the teams use to fill them in. So here's an example of response card. So this is a statement: I find it hard to accept other people's fundamental beliefs, especially when they're very different from my own. And then teams using a form, they rate their response as an individual, whether that's often true, seldom true, or never true. And then when the individuals have rated it, the group do a group response as well, having discussed this card. So there are 10 cards where they have to respond to a statement about emotional intelligence. Another 10 cards are yes/no cards. So you work in the greenhouse in the City Council Parks Department. You grow plants for civic displays, parks and streets. You're increasingly irritated by one of your workmates who is, on a daily basis, helping himself to potted plants and taking them home. Do you take any action? If no, what are your reasons? So again, we get an individual to respond how they would deal with that, and then the group discuss it and come up with a group consensus. And there are 9 other situations like that where the team have to decide on its yes or no. And then there are also task cards where again you get a statement. Self-awareness is a key competency of emotional intelligence. It's about knowing and understanding how you're feeling. This is a generalized statement, and it refers the team to a handout they have called a task form. And on then there, if you follow the arrow down, there are some specific questions. How aware are you of your own emotions? What triggers your emotions? And how do you feel when in an emotional state? And the group come up with some ideas and make some bullet points in the white box there. So there are 30 cards altogether. And normally what we advise people to do is pick maybe 15, because they'll like some of the cards, they might not like some of the others, and give those cards to the group to work through. If they spent 5 minutes on each card, it would take them over half an hour to get through 15. And we would normally run this for around 40 minutes. But if you used all 30 cards, it's probably too long for a session. So it's quite flexible in how you can use it. And we know a few managers who use it as a lunchtime training session for maybe 25 minutes one day, and then they do some more cards next week and some more cards the week after. So it's quite useful in that way.
Excellent. Questions? Any questions about this last game? So we've looked at like 3 hot topics right now in terms of time management, team building, and emotional intelligence, which I feel like are, such rich topics that we're all kind of wrestling with now. Thank you, Mike and Zoe, and let's hang on a little bit in case folks have questions, but really appreciate your sharing this and giving us some insight into how these go.
Oh, and a big thank you, Sue, for having us, but we'll be very happy to hang on and answer any questions.
So, I use the emotional intelligence game, but I heard Mike just say, hey, to get through all 30 cards may be too long, but I will tell you that's how I use it. I do it at the end of a training day. I have clients that we will do an 8-hour training session. So I will eliminate some of my, coursework at the end of the day, and I'll put in one of the Northgate activities. And we do the full emotional intelligence activity, all 30 cards. And they've never had an issue with it. They enjoy it. They like the experience. I tell them we're going to have an experiential activity we're going to do at the end of the day. And they like that component of it. But I start actually with demonstrating leadership. To me, that's the most fun game of all the ones. I have a lot of them. Most fun game that I have. Now I've made it competitive so that they're building this village, and then at the end of the day, what I do, instead of me judging the village that they build, I let them judge, but they can't vote for their own team. So then everybody gets to vote. We come up with a winner, and then I always have a big prize. Sometimes I do cash prizes, sometimes I do other things, but I intentionally want to make that competitive. And cafeteria workers, school teachers, pharmaceutical reps, they all get competitive with that game. So demonstrating leadership for me is awesome.
We're going to have to look into that one. I don't think Trainers Warehouse has that one. So we'll look into that, but it's also would be available right now on the Northgate site. But that also makes me think of, I feel like we were on one of our show and share sessions and somebody was raving about Rollerball, which is kind of building a marble run kind of thing with paper clips and paper. And, I guess each of you has a favorite when it comes to these games. There's so many good ones from Northgate. I'll tell you that. But thanks, Cedric, for sharing that. That's awesome.
Yes, many thanks. Yeah, the rollerball one is another of the collaborative ones. So it sort of looks like, especially if you sort of look at a few pictures, it looks like they're just building a runway, but actually there's a bit more to it because the teams have to work together. They're building, 3 teams are building 1/3 of the runway each, and they have specific specifications for their part of the runway. So there's a lot of communication and collaboration that goes into that one.
I also like, Cedric, what you said about giving people something to look forward to at the end of the day. That's something that, you know, reinforces the learning and energizes. Because I think with a lot of these games, right, when we do them, depends on whether we're introducing a topic, reinforcing, and so forth. And I like that the versatility of these games also, that depending on when you conduct them, you're able to draw out different sorts of learning experiences that may be appropriate at different times in the learning cycle.
Yes. And the other way that, and I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, but the other way that I use these is I will give the school system, I'll tell them, I do a lot of work in school systems across the country. So I'll tell them, here's the list of interactive, I call them experiential opportunities that we have. And then I'll let them go to the website and read about them and tell me which one they want to do. And that's all we will do. We'll spend, 90 minutes, 2 hours. That's all we'll do in that session is that activity and go. So it's a great one-off thing that you can just do by itself. And they learn what the principle while they're having fun.
Awesome. Good job. Good job.
Yeah.
And Lorraine is asking, do you have anything geared specifically for change management?
Yeah, you do.
We do, yeah. We've got 2. We've got one called All Change, which is based on an office move, and another one called Introducing Change, where playing the role of a manager, you have to plan how you're going to introduce change into a company. And then it ends by you giving the actual presentation that you would give to employees if you were making some substantial changes.
Excellent. And we can send some more links out after this session. I don't have all of those at my fingertips unless Mike or Zoe might have them. And Lorraine's follow-up, it looks like, is anything to help support a team through a merger, acquisition, divestiture.
Wow. That's very specific.
It is. You know what I was going to say also is it is very specific. And sometimes I think that one of the benefits of games is that you pull people out of the reality of their current situation. And the fact that you're a little bit separated from it is actually kind of helpful because you're not focusing on that specific issue. So you're able to draw the lessons about change, how we communicate, how we deal with each other, how we give bad news, how we collaborate, that you can then say, okay, I see in this not real world situation what we do. Now, how can we relate that to the real world? So even if that's kind of the thing that you're dealing with, I'm not sure that that would be the game necessarily. And, Mike and Zoe, correct me, or any of the folks who are on with us today, but that is how I might think about it. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah,
sure.
So yeah, I see it as some part of as I put it in the project planning mode because they're going to have to, if they're doing that, they're going to have to project plan a lot of different things and strategy. And here's this game. It's called How to Rob a Bank, right? And when you tell people what they're going to do is learn play How to Rob a Bank, just the title itself is catches them, and because there's a lot that goes into this How to Rob a Bank part. It's fun and people love it. So that's one that I would try, and for whoever the lady asked that question, I would do that because there's a lot of that, just like her think she's dealing with her customer.
Great. Thank you, Cedric. I know we're over our 12:30 mark, but great conversation, great questions. Anything else before we wrap things up? All right. Well, let me say thank you to Mike and Zoe. Great to have you with us today. And thanks
Thank
for all
you.
of you for participating. Thanks, Cedric. We so appreciate your contributions today.
Sure.
Wish everybody a good day and a good evening.